Hi, this is Henk, and welcome to another edition of the Skull Session. And today, my guest is Mark Davis. Is that correct?
It's Ed Davis.
Ed Davis. See, I always get it wrong. All right. So, what's up, man? So, let's talk about what you got on. You have a Kickstarter you just put out there.
Yeah, I have a Kickstarter. It's actually live today. So it's first day and it's for my book Corruptor. So I have two series. My main one is Immortal Era, and that one I have 9 issues out of it right now. But Corruptor is a side story that I'm telling. It's a shared universe story. And I'm about to put out the second issue of that one. And this Corruptor, when it's all said and done, will be a little 4 issue miniseries. So the basic premise of that story, it's a mafia hitman who gets killed in the line of duty, and after his death he immediately gets recruited by hell because hell looks at him and says, "Oh, all this amazing horrible stuff you did when you were alive, that's going to work perfect for us, so we're going to use you to corrupt souls because heaven and hell are battling to gather souls before the immortal era begins." So that's the connection that it has to immortal era, because God and the devil both know that everyone's going to become immortal and there's not going to be anyone else coming to the afterlife, so they're racing to win before immortality takes over the world.
That's kind of a cool concept. It's different than what I've heard before. So this is a comic book series, is a comic book mini series. What are
Yes.
your plans? What do you have out so far?
So it's a comic book miniseries. There's going to be 4 issues. Each issue is 28 pages, so 4 28-page issues, and they'll be, when it's all said and done, there'll be a companion piece to Immortal Era. So you could read this series and then it will bridge right into Immortal Era. So they can both be read independently, but when it's all done, the connections are going to be really big. So there's going to be there's small connections in issue 2 where I show a reporter that we saw in the first issue of Immortal Era. We just see him doing a regular newscast, and then some of the characters from Corruptor show up in the 12th issue of Immortal Era. So I'm trying to make a big connected universe.
So, but it's kind of like Mad Max or Road Warrior, where they're not like so super direct. You have to see one to see the other.
Yeah, I mean, this one I don't want to make it where you have to read one to understand the other. So people that read Corruptor, all they're going to miss are little Easter eggs. And
Right.
then those characters from Corruptor that come into Immortal Era, I mean, the characters are, big, they're God and the devil, so they can pop up anywhere, and you don't have to say, "Oh, I had to have read Corruptor to understand who the devil is." So the characters that come in, they're kind of universal characters, so you don't need to have previous understanding, because I really don't want to make something where you have to read both series and now you got to catch up on 9 issues of Immortal Era before you can even start Corruptor. So they 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 function independently, but I just like to have that the connected universe Easter eggs that the readers of both can enjoy.
It seems like yeah, it seems like they used to do that like a lot more in comic books, like especially like the big publishers like Marvel and DC. Like
Mm-hmm.
they bring in characters and storylines, and those would leave, but it's not like you have to read that initial connection. Like I remember I had the first appearance of Wolverine, and he appeared
Mm-hmm.
in Hulk, 181. And it's like him battling the Hulk, and then when he had his own series, it's not like you had to read that Hulk, comic to understand Wolverine.
Yeah.
So I like that. It's cool when there's like the connection, but it's not so direct. You have to invest in all this stuff. Um,
Yeah.
all right, so let's get on to your artist. What artist did you pick? How did you pick your artist?
The artist I use actually for both of my series is Cesar Oliveira. And I found him when I was just kind of searching online. I typed in, writer looking for comic artist, and it took me to something that looked like almost like those old news groups that I used to go to when we first got the internet. And it just had a lot of different artists that had links to their portfolios. And when I saw Caesar's work, it really kind of fit the sensibilities I was looking for the Immortal Era series. And then when I started to write the Corruptor one, I told him, "Hey, I have a new series," and he was interested in joining that one as well.
Okay. And what drew you to his style? Like what's your style preference as far as like an illustrator for your work?
When I was looking initially, I was looking for something that had more of a 90s vibe to it, because those were the 80s, 90s were the prime years I was reading comics, just, reading, devouring as many as I could get. And I loved
Well, so was I
that
hear
old
you.
that old school kind of pencil and ink look, not the digital look. And he
Right.
still did everything traditional. So that was a fact that really drew me to him. And then also the amount of detail that he put into his backgrounds was so meticulous that I loved it. It's like he didn't just show characters in an empty panel. No, he put so many little things behind him. And when I went and had him design our main two settings, he put so much care into those that they're beautiful images. They could be posters on their own. And someone who puts that much detail into what's just behind the characters was someone I wanted to work with.
Yeah, it seems like as far as like mainstream comics went, they kind of had their heyday, and it's probably like in the 80s and 90s. There were all these amazing artists like Barry Windsor Smith and Bernie Wrightson, John Tolman, Steve Bissett, and all that stuff, and they were just putting out like mind-blowing stuff. And it seems like I remember because I interviewed with DC Comics and they pay very little. And like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I've since talked to, I featured Steve Bissett on this podcast and Walter Simonson, from Thor on this podcast.
Yeah.
And they're all art teachers at colleges because for all the amazing work they did, they don't own any rights to it. So,
Yeah.
and I know that, when I interviewed, like they paid so little, they pay even less now because a lot of people do digitally. So I
Yeah.
think that's kind of like the, traditional good story, it's kind of a lost form.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate that. Like I remember, I appreciated, all the independents coming out, like the Crow or like Cerebus and all
Mm-hmm.
that stuff. And this seems kind of like a resurgence of that, like people
Yeah.
doing their own thing instead of like when I interviewed with DC, they asked me if I would draw Superman. I was like, no. And they're like, we don't have a job for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's we saw it in the 80s and 90s with those books that you're talking about, and the Ninja Turtles and the Bone series, and all of those guys, they were just doing it themselves. And that's why they were black and white, because they had to print it on the cheapest format that they could, but they were able to sustain a book. And some of them got, huge money later on, but they all did it on their own. And I think the way the printing costs have changed make it so independents can go out there and do it on their own. And from what you're talking about, it sounds like they'll make as much or more as they would if they went to work for one of the big guys.
Oh, definitely. I know that there, like, if you talk to like Alan Moore is one of my favorites. He got
Mm-hmm.
so heavily screwed by DC Comics, and like,
Yeah.
even when they promise you the rights, they don't give it to you. They pull all sorts of like little nasty tricks and stuff. Like when they did the Watchmen movie, which he said this should be a comic, it should never be a movie. But they
Yeah.
did the movie, and he said, he was so against it, he wanted his name taken off the credits. So if you look at the
Mm-hmm.
Watchmen movie, it doesn't even mention, the whole thing is Alan Moore, but it doesn't even mention
Yeah.
that.
His name's not even in it.
Yeah. And I know Frank Miller, like after he did, The Dark Knight Rises, and he was kind of like the hot thing.
Mhm.
Hollywood came calling, and he did RoboCop, and he did RoboCop 2 because RoboCop, the first one I think is awesome, it's classic, and then
Yeah,
2 came out, and he's like, oh yeah, I'd love to do it. So Burton Hollywood was like, yeah, you're a good writer, but you're not a movie guy, so we're gonna rewrite it. So they
yeah,
rewrote it. It was crap. And
yeah,
then they came back to him and they said, hey, can you re-edit it but keep some of, this stuff in it? He's like, no, fuck you.
yeah.
So if you notice RoboCop 2, like they credit 3 writers, including Frank
Hmm.
Miller on it. But yeah, there's like people should trust indie. I guess like what this all boils down to is people should trust indie creators.
Yeah,
They often have like something. They have a cool idea and it's better than what Hollywood has in mind because Hollywood always tries to mangle it towards the market. And
yeah.
when you do that, that's the wrong way to go.
Hmm.
But so let's get back. I don't want to get on a rant too much here. Let's get back to your comic. So, how often do you put out an issue, and how many issues do you have out so far?
So with Corruptor, we're doing about two a year, and with Immortal Era, it's about between 3 and 4 a year. So I try to do about 6 issues a year, and that keeps both stories going. Since Corruptor's a smaller story, it can finish faster, where Immortal Era is a planned 24 issue series. So that one's going to take a lot longer. That's why I print more issues of that than I do of Corruptor. So with Immortal Era, as soon as this Corruptor campaign ends, I have issue 10 of Immortal Era already ready to go. And then issue
Are
11,
each
they're
comic
already
24
working on it.
pages?
The Immortal Eras are between 24 and 28, although I've done a couple issues that were 32. So that's kind of one of the big advantages of being an indie creator. If you want more pages, you just
Yeah.
make it more pages.
I
You're not
remember
saying,
when
"Oh,
I
well, I better
interviewed with
trim this
DC, it's
down to
like they want an exact page count.
22 and, not a page over because they need to have 8 pages for their ads that they toss in." Where
Right.
for mine, I'm like, okay, I needed 32 pages to tell this story. You still have to follow the rule of putting out increments of 4, but as
Yeah,
long
that's
as you
way
do
better.
that,
Yeah.
you can make it as big as you want.
Yeah, the more freedom you have from like the direct, having to sell to the market, the better
Mhm.
off you are. I mean, that goes
Yeah.
with everything with bands, with like, comics, with books, with movies, whatever. But
Mhm.
all right, so how many pages do you typically do for Corruptor?
Each issue's been 28, so it's looking like each issue will be 28 pages. So that's kind of where I don't know, since the first one was 28, I thought I'd just kind of follow that same pattern of doing 28 page stories for each one.
Okay, awesome. And when you present it, is like the inside, is it black and white? Is it color? How are you going about that?
It's full color, so it's
Okay,
it's
I
oh,
know
go ahead.
like I've done stuff for like the Living Corpse comic, and it's like now everything is digital. So and the digital
Mhm.
color will often be like a much more varied palette than I remember the old like four print, like dotted, So I think that's what you're doing. Like you have a guy that like does computerized color over traditional pencils.
Yeah, it is. I don't know of any traditional colorists that use still that don't do digital because, like you said, the palette is it's so huge. Where before you had
Well,
to mix
I
colors
know
and
that
things
some
like that.
people will do it. Like this is kind of the old school way they used to do it. And I think some people still do it. It's kind of like a strange like hipster trend. But I know that what they'll do is they'll basically use watercolor paper and they'll print the line work on the watercolor
Hmm.
paper, then they'll watercolor color all of it, then they'll
Okay.
print the line work on a transparency and put that over top of the watercolor so the lines are nice and crisp. You know,
Okay.
and I've done that. It fucking takes forever.
I'm sure.
But I've done that. I think it's a cool look. But again, it's like you can do great stuff on the computer, so it's like you don't necessarily need to do that.
Yeah. I guess, like you said, it's something that's a trend that people want to show off that they can do it once in a while, but no one puts color to those original art pages. It's they leave those alone and hand paint or whatever. Because I've seen people who do that. I've talked to artists that say, okay, I color everything by hand painting, and of course their rates were way more than I could ever think of affording. It's like that's amazing, but I don't have $500 a
Yeah,
page to
yeah.
pay for your coloring.
Well, you can get like a Dave McKean or something like that who does like everything is like every page, every panel is like a watercolor illustration.
Yeah,
But I actually really like that whole like it's older like the kind of like Al Williamson, like Bernie Wrightson. Like I really like that style. I think that style is perfect for comic books.
mm-hmm.
So and if you get like computer coloring in there, it doesn't take away from it. Like I felt like some of that those four color prints with the dot work kind of took away from it because I was like, oh come on, this amazing illustration and like the simplistic coloring.
Yeah, agreed.
So with the covers, are you having like painted covers? Are they illustrated and colored? What are you doing?
The colors are pretty much when I do the covers, I use the same process as the interior pages. So we just do the standard digital colors, and Caesar does all of the covers as well. I brought in a few guest artists to do covers, but not in the Corruptor series, not yet. So Immortal Era, I brought in a Garbage Pail Kid artist to do a Garbage Pail Kid cover that'll be for our next issue actually. And then I have I've brought in a few for different con exclusive covers that I've done. But in general, I work with the same art team so that people won't look at the cover. If I bring in, some high end Marvel artist and they look at the cover, they open the pages and it doesn't look the same. Sometimes people get upset. So I want it to look where you look at the
Though
cover, what you see on the outside is what you're going to get on the inside.
just to throw out to the indie market, you have some amazing illustrators that work for indie press that don't work for Marvel. So
Mm-hmm.
just because you work for Marvel or DC doesn't mean that you're the best on the market. You know,
No,
like the guy who invented the Crow, he's an amazing illustrator. He never worked for Marvel or DC. You know,
no.
so
And that's the
I just
thing.
want to
But
throw that
yeah,
out there.
I guess it's just the prestige. Like, ooh, we got a DC
Yeah,
artist. So
yeah.
they people like to just say it. But like you said, that doesn't mean we got the best artist. We just got one who has name recognition.
No, I know. It's kind of like bands. It's like, oh wow, I got picked up by a major label. It doesn't mean you're the best band. It just means you're on a big label.
Yeah. You found the right A&R guy who brought you in.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
a lot of it's just luck of the draw of who was standing at your show that one night.
Yeah, yeah. So do you do a lot of Comic Cons to like advertise this to like get it out to the general public? Where do you mainly do it? Are you on the West Coast or the East Coast?
I'm based in the West Coast. I'm in Southern California, so the majority of the cons that I do are out on the West Coast. Although I try to do one travel con a year. So my travel con for this year was I did the Nashville Comic Con
Okay.
because my mom lives out in Nashville. So I figured it's good when you have a place that's a home base and you don't have to spend all the money on hotels because that'll break your bottom line quick.
Yeah.
And I stayed at her house. I did the Nashville Comic Con. I've done Phoenix. I've done Las Vegas. So still stuff more centered in the West Coast. But I've applied for C2E2 and for Seattle, but it's all just about a lot of them will be like, okay, you're on the wait list. And then a week before the con, they're like, okay, great, we got you a table. And for me in California, there's no way I can just get to Chicago and get all these travel plans done in a
At the
week.
last
So
minute, yeah.
yeah, where if LA sends me a message with a week before the con and says, hey, we have a table open, well, I can drive back and forth. I don't need to get a hotel. So anything on the West Coast, if I get stuck on the wait list and it opens up, then I can immediately jump on that because it's, anything that I can drive to, I'll do. So I've done LA. I'm going to San Diego. I'm doing a panel there, but I won't be selling, exhibiting there. But I've done San Diego. I do LA every year. WonderCon is run by the same people that do San Diego Comic Con, so I do that one. And generally, if there's any shows in SoCal, I try to get myself into those ones. So usually it's show a month or so that I try to do and just keep the book circulating out here. So this coast knows me well. When I did Nashville, it was a whole room of people that have never heard of me, never heard of my book. So it was nice. I got a lot of new readers, but yeah, that the travel cons are great. It's just, you have to have a lot of money and you have to be willing to lose some because hotels will eat you up.
Oh, I know. I do a lot of like horror author conventions. It's the same thing. It's like, holy shit, I spent more money in the hotel than the flight and the booth combined.
Yeah,
Have you ever tried doing New Jersey or New York?
I haven't. It's one of the places I want to get to. My colorist for Immortal Air is based in New Jersey, so if I could get out that way, it would be great because she could come to the table. We could kind of double sign for people, and it's something I want to do. So I would love to do New York Comic Con, but I know that that one's hard to get into and just get eaten alive with the hotels. But I think New Jersey would be better because the hotels are a little cheaper and you're gonna get. I
Well,
think.
they're a lot cheaper than what you get. Like I lived in Philly for a while, so
Mhm.
I've done the Philly Comic Con, but like I feel like Philly, New Jersey, New York, they're all so close to each other that people from New York go to the Philly Comic Con,
Yeah.
people from Jersey go to like New York Comic Con. So like say you did like the Philly or Jersey Comic Con,
Hmm.
like you can always get a hotel that's like not the in fact the cons are often at convention centers and not even at hotels, but you can
Okay.
get a hotel that's like not right there,
Hmm.
that's like a super 8 or whatever,
Yeah.
and they're fairly cheap.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna look into that because I'd love to. I haven't hit I did Florida, but I haven't done, New York, New Jersey, Philly. I haven't done that area. So that's a place I want to get to. I have a good chunk of Kickstarter backers from that area, so I know that they would probably come to the show and, maybe they don't need to get anything, but you can meet some of the people that actually buy your book, which is nice. And yeah, it's one of the things when I look for my travel con next year, that's the area I want to look into.
Yeah, the Philly Comic Con is pretty big. Like I met people from Neil Adams Studio. I met Frank Frazetta's daughters there. So there's like a whole Frank Frazetta booth. I'm a big Frank Frazetta fan.
Oh yeah.
But it's like it seemed like pretty much everyone was there. The problem I had, like I do illustrated books, so people
Mhm.
just wanted comics. Like people would even pick up, they're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, that's cool. Is this a comic?" I'm like, no, it's an illustrated book. They're like, oh, thank you.
Oh
But
wow.
I'm sure you'll do great because you'll have a comic for sale there. So
Yeah.
getting back to your comic, how can people find it? I noticed on Kickstarter, you have a Kickstarter campaign going right now. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So the
How long do you have
Kickstarter's
left on the Kickstarter?
Kickstarter just launched today, so it has 30 days left. So that one has a full month to go. And then I do have a website, finishlinecomics.com. And on that website, I have a web store that you can buy all the back issues. with that, if you wanted Corruptor 1, you can get that on the web store if you want it right now, but it's also available in the Kickstarter. But all the issues of Immortal Era, including the trades that collect the first story arc, are all on the web store.
You know what? While you were talking, like you just froze for a minute. So it's like almost
Oh,
like there's a blip in the matrix.
oh no.
But yeah. All right. So is your website the best place to go to for stuff?
Website, if you want things right away, that's the best place to go for back issues. The website has a link to the web store, and that's a good place to go. The Kickstarters, I always do a Kickstarter campaign for new issues, so that's a place to go if you want to get the
Does it
newest one
help
because I
fund
don't
the
put
new
any.
issue? Like
Yeah, that
I've
helps fund the
interviewed
new
quite a
issue.
number of comic creators, and like the Kickstarter is what pays the artist for them and the publisher for them to put it out. Is that the
Yeah.
way that you can run?
The way I do it, yeah, I mean, in a perfect world, you'll make enough money in the Kickstarter to pay the artist and everything. But for me, it helps take the edge off. The
Okay.
Kickstarter is what I use to pay for the printing. The printing is the one thing that's always covered in the Kickstarter. That's what I put my minimum funding goal for, is enough to pay the printing. And then I look at it as, oh, if the Kickstarter can pay for the printing, then the cons that I work can pay for everything else. So if you get lucky and you do a Kickstarter campaign that can actually pay for everything, and I've had a few that have been that successful where by the time it was done, it covered the artist fees, it covered the printing. That was great. I just siphoned all of that into making a new issue. I said, okay, well, issue that was for issue 6. Issue 6 has been covered. Now I can use the money that was in excess to help print those trades.
Okay. Um, the Kickstarter, like, how do you normally advertise it? Like, do you just tell people about it? Do you have like a go-to way that you promote it?
I generally do a lot of social media. So I have Kickstarter, or I'm sorry, not Kickstarter. I have Instagram, I have Facebook, I have a TikTok account, and I have a YouTube account. And on those, they're all under Finish Line Comics, and I'll do promotion for it. So what I've been doing on my YouTube channel and on my TikTok is I've been just, excuse me, reviewing other people's books. So I do short little 1 minute reviews for
Mm-hmm.
other indie creators. And when now that my book's coming out, I won't do a review of my own book because I'm not a narcissist, but I'll do a little showcase of the book. Like, okay, Corruptor, since we're not going to review it, but let's talk about what's Corruptor all about. So we'll be putting those little videos out, and each one, of course, will have the link to the Kickstarter. But I've been trying to do a little series of things to help promote some of the other indie creators because it's hard. You get lost in the algorithms when you're trying to
Oh,
get
you
your
definitely
books out
do.
there.
And like there's stuff that I've seen this like grid. I'm like, why are more people not into this? It's just 'cause they don't know about it. Like
Yeah.
my personal favorite artist is John Tolman.
Mhm.
Like he worked with Steve Bissett. He did those early Swamp Things with Alan
Yeah.
Moore. He did Miracle Man, with Alan Moore. Like I think he's like every artist who sees his stuff is like he's amazing. But
Yeah.
I'm like the general public does not really know about him.
Yeah.
Like there, I guess wasn't a promo. That stuff was considered more indie, whatever,
Mhm.
and it just never made it. I mean, it's unfortunate,
Yeah.
that he didn't get out more. He's not more respected in the genre. But all right, so going back to you in the Kickstarter, do you have any rewards? Like, do you give out any original artwork or like there's like a one comic creator that creates like little like stuffed animals,
Mhm.
um I forget what her comic is called, but it has like a Anubis, the Egyptian god of the
Yeah,
dead.
that's Carissa Grant.
Oh yeah,
That
yes it
is,
is. Yeah, very
and
nice
that
lady.
is, oh gosh, yeah. I met her. She was actually at the Nashville Comic Con, so
Okay.
I met her there for the first time, and yeah, it's oh, I'm trying to remember the name of her series, but yeah. Carissa does the little stuffed animals and
Yeah.
everything.
And I was like, oh, I gotta get one of those for my girl. But do you do anything like that?
I do. I have for Corruptor, I have less stuff because it with it being a newer series, I haven't created as much merch, but I do have original art pages. So there's one interior page, a splash page that's for sale, and that one is from issue 1, and that's where we see our main character Tony watching his own funeral. So he's dead, he's watching his own funeral, so we have that page, and then I have one of the 3 covers. I have the original cover, and then what you'll get is you'll get the cover, you'll get the book, and you'll get the a poster. So you could kind of do it. I had someone buy that with Immortalera, and he put a little frame display up where you have the original art page and the poster together, and then he put the book in the middle, and it looked really cool. He actually sent me a picture of it. So I do have that. I have a few CGC graded copies of the book that are available. So you can get the standard cover of issue 1. Since issue 2 is not printed yet, I don't have those, but you can get the standard cover of 1 or the foil cover graded by CGC and done with the yellow label signature series.
Okay. Yeah, I think people really miss the boat because everybody like they don't buy it until all of a sudden it's popular, and they try and buy it, and then it's like super expensive. And
Mm-hmm.
like my direct example of that is like I'm a big both Barry Winston Smith fan and Machine Man fan. So he did that
Mm-hmm.
Machine Man limited series. So I had a page with like Machine Man fighting Iron Man. And I remember at the time it cost me like $175, which to me was a fortune because I mean
Yeah.
I was like 18 when I bought it. But I still bought it because I thought it was so awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Then, I went through like I was homeless for a while, so I eventually sold it because I needed the money to like feed myself.
Mm-hmm.
You know what that same page costs today? $3,500.
Wow.
So like if I just held on to it, I mean I wouldn't sell it, but if I
Yeah.
just held on, but I can't buy it now. It's like, dude,
Yeah.
I got other stuff I gotta
Now it's
spend money on. Yeah,
untouchable.
yeah.
And
But
that, yeah, that's what I look at. I hope people look at it like that. Okay, they're if they buy an original art page, it could be an investment. I mean, no one knows what's going to happen in the future, but if something does
I mean, we
happen and
could
the
all die
series
in a
gains
nuclear war.
popularity, what's that?
We could all die in a nuclear war.
Yeah,
Have
we
you
have
seen the
no.
series Fallout?
I haven't watched that one yet.
Really good, really good. But yeah, that's
Okay.
what it's about.
Yeah. And yeah, you don't know what's going to happen, but who knows? You could be buying the page because the cover's 250, but you could be buying a cover. And I looked at, I was watching a show, I forget what it was, but they had bought original page from The Walking Dead, the first issue. And same thing, it was like $175 at a con, and then they sold it in auction for 100,000. So it's like you don't know.
Yeah, and I remember like Bernie Wrightson when he did all those famous Frankenstein pages.
Hmm.
He was selling the pages just to be able to afford doing it because he spent
Yeah.
3 years working on it. He was at the famous it was a studio in downtown New York with like Mike Kaluta and Jeffrey Jones and
Mm.
Barry Winston Smith. But he was selling those pages for like 100 and something each. You know how much those are worth now?
Oh man, yeah. Thousands, I'm
Original
sure.
Frankenstein illustrations, yeah. But yeah, so everybody should. I mean, it sounds like a broken record, but everybody should support indie stuff, especially if it's quality. And often it is way better quality than when you get like in Marvel or DC or any of those big publishers. Like even a lot of the people that were felt limited and they broke away to like Image Comics. They created Spawn, they created Hellboy, they created all this amazing stuff that you would never see in DC.
Yeah. They had to leave to be able to really fulfill their vision. And like you said, some of these people created iconic, huge characters and they have nothing to show for it.
Right. Fortunately, the guys at Image kept the rights.
Yeah,
So like when Frank Miller did Sin City, it was through Image.
yeah.
I'll bet he didn't get nearly what he's owed for like the Dark Knight Rises or the Dark Knight Returns or anything like that. But when he did Sin City, I'll bet he finally got paid. Good
Yeah,
for
because
him.
that's all his. That's
Yeah.
his IP. That's his money. No, nobody's saying, okay, here's your, 10%, if they even give 10%. Who knows? When Venom made it to the movies, did McFarlane get a penny of that? I'm sure it wasn't much, if any.
But well, no, I think when he did Venom, he did that on not Venom. I'm sorry, I'm thinking Spawn. Yeah, Spawn
Yeah.
was his creation, so he got paid off
Yeah,
that.
Spawn, if
Probably
if
not
something happens with
Venom.
Spawn, it's all him.
Yeah,
If anything happens with Venom or Deadpool, these creators, they did them for Marvel, so Marvel gets all the
and
money and
people
all the
get
rights.
screwed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I remember Alan Moore when he put out Watchmen, and like they thought Watchmen was gonna like to give him some indie cred, but it would do nothing.
Yeah.
So and then when it was like people were saying, "Oh, it's one of the best books of all time" and stuff, they started selling Watchmen watches and Watchmen
Oh yeah.
shirts and Watchmen posters, and Alan Moore goes, "Where's my percentage?" And they go, "Oh, that's publicity for your comic."
Yeah. You don't get that.
You didn't get anything off them. And then they said, well, like with the rights to it, like they renewed the rights. I think it's like every 6 months or every, year or whatever. And they told him, they're like, well, you don't get the initial rights, but we just won't renew it and I'll go back to you. He's like, all right,
Yeah.
cool. They've renewed it every year. They still own the
Oh
rights to
yeah.
that.
Yeah, that's why they can put out new comic books without his blessing. They put out a new TV series without his blessing. And
Yeah,
yeah, it doesn't matter how he feels about it. He can grumble, but in the end, they're gonna do what they want
yeah.
with or without his permission.
I feel bad. That poor guy. He was already on the edge. Now he's like my girl calls him the crazy wizard guy.
Yeah.
But he's a brilliant crazy wizard guy.
Oh
So
yeah.
I'll give him that. All right. So I don't want to keep you here all day, but so what's the best way for people to get a hold of you, and where can they find your stuff? Like I'm old. I remember first when comics were on spinner racks and 7-Eleven. Then you went to comic stores and comic stores had. Now I know a lot of people buy stuff online.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the market is.
Yeah, for my stuff, I have go into any of my social media, and that's all under Finish Line Comics. If you send me a message or anything there, I'm quick to respond. And I have my web store on the Finish Line Comics website. If you're in Southern California, you'll see me at a show inevitably because I try to do as many shows as possible. Next week, I'll be at San Diego Comic Con doing a panel on indie comic writing. It's on Friday, and then right now, head to Kickstarter. You can grab that new issue of Corruptor as well as the old one. The couple original art pages are up there, and right now we're in the first 48 hours, so we're going to have a giveaway for anyone who backs physical in the first 48 hours. I haven't announced that yet. I'm going to announce that tonight, and when I announce that, you'll be able to be entered for a raffle to win a prize if you buy in the first 48 hours. And I've done things like that before where I did $100 gift cards and things like that to reward people who back right away.
Okay, awesome. Um, so is the best way to get a hold of you to get your website, to your Facebook? What is it?
If you go to my website, it has a way to contact me. You can send me a direct message. Instagram, I'm quick to reply to messages on that one as well. So if you want to get a hold of me, the website's a great way because it has a direct way to do it where it sends any communication to me as an email, which means as soon as the Kickstarter launches, I'm going to start getting just mountains of emails from people saying, "Oh, your campaign doesn't look good. We're going to save your campaign. Just give us 500
No,
bucks."
I
So
don't get that. I get that
I'm about to get a
constantly.
swarm of
Yeah.
those. Can't wait.
There's one guy that I keep going back and forth with just because I think it's the music for me. he's like, yeah, well, I've done this. And so I keep like feeding him stuff. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, that looks like crap. Yeah, that didn't work. Yeah, your English is bad. And he won't stop. He just keeps going.
Oh,
He
they
keeps
won't.
going.
If you reply, they just keep coming at you because I'll try to be really really snarky and rude to them, and they don't even take it as an insult.
I
They're like,
know,
"Oh,
I
we got
know.
a live one here." The line, so someone bit on the line. Let's keep sending messages.
Right. Well, and often like what they want is they want like $90 or less. It's like you're putting this much work into it, but it's like, you know what, $90 in some foreign countries is a lot of money.
Yeah,
So like they're desperate to take your money. It's like the more desperate they are, probably the less good they are. So,
yeah.
you know, like I said, you can keep up with them for the amusement of fucking with them, but it's like
Oh, yeah. It's about
I,
to come. I know. It's like as soon as I check my inbox, probably as soon as we're done, if I go look in my inbox, it's going to be 18 messages from "I love your campaign," and then I get those
oh,
"How
you
do
got
I
so
back
much
the
potential.
campaign?"
If you just let me market it, it'll be great.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They can save me. It's like your campaign doesn't look like it's doing well. I'm like, it's been live for an hour, and he's like, no,
Right.
we can help you. We can save you. So, yeah,
Just give
don't
us like
contact me if you're one
ninety
of those guys.
dollars or yeah, yeah.
If you're one of them, go fuck off. Otherwise, if you want to talk to me and you're a real person, please send me a message. I'm happy to talk and answer questions. And yeah, like I said, the web store has all of our back issues, and Corruptor 1 and 2 are live right now. And
Are
yeah,
you in the local indie like comic book shops and stuff like that?
I'm in a lot of local shops as far as like around the United States, not many, but in California, you can find it at a lot of local shops.
Okay. But like probably the best way is it like would it be Amazon, something like that, where that's the
I
best
don't
way to order it?
I don't have it on Amazon. The best way would be on my web store because
Okay.
Amazon does the print on demand thing, and I've seen the quality of their comic
It's
book
not
print on
good.
demand stuff, and no chance I'm handing my stuff to them.
Okay. All right. Well, awesome, man. Thank you for doing this. Do you have anything else you want to throw out there?
No, just support indie comics.
Definitely buy your shit. Everyone, you heard it. You heard it from him. All right. Thanks, man.